Lindsey, welcome to the Fearless Warrior Pod.
Thanks for having me, Amanda. I'm so excited to be here.
This conversation is years in the making. I am just so excited to share you with my audience and your expertise. You have been a mental performance coach and someone I have looked up to for a long, long time. Can you give us a 1-2 punch? Where are you located? Where are you at? Who are you working with? What is your life like?
Well, thanks. It's always nice to hear that. I have been doing this for a really long time. I will say I don't look that old, but I've been doing this for over 20 years. So, it is so nice to see like you youngins coming up. And obviously I love more women in this field too. And I love the idea of moms being in it. So like kudos to you for forging ahead. Let's see. I am located in Seattle, Washington. I have four daughters, 9, 6, 5, and 2. And, I was a collegiate and professional basketball player, and I really looked around from my career from about like 15 years on and sort of had that well, first, I felt like there was something wrong with me because I could not figure out how to be more consistent. I felt like I was mentally in my own way. I would play great sometimes and not others. I had these big goals to play Division 1 basketball and it just like wasn't happening. I was worried about what my teammates thought. I was passing when I should have been shooting, shooting when I should have been passing. And I was like, what in the hell is wrong with me? And, the universe aligned. Really, it was my mom that who really wasn't that much of a sports person. But she found a coach that was basically a mental performance coach. I don't know that he called himself that, but and this was in 1996. Nobody was doing this kind of stuff. And it literally made an immediate and life-changing impact on my life. I mean, the things that he taught me were very simple. I'm sure we can go into some of those later, but immediately the trajectory of my life changed. I went on to play collegiate basketball. I had a really successful career at Iowa State. By the way, tested at every step of the way, right? I mean, those mental skills had to keep developing just as my physical skills did. Many times I was saddled with self-doubt. Many times I felt like I was going to go under, so to speak. And I kept doubling down on the mental game. I kept finding mentors. I started working with a hypnotist at some point, got really passionate about that, and went on to get drafted in the WNBA. Got cut from the WNBA multiple times, but kept showing up, kept going to training camps, kept getting invited, was a practice player, and then had a successful overseas career for about 8 seasons. That whole time, I was interested in mental performance coaching. And then when I graduated college, I was like, okay, I need to teach this. I don't know what I'm going to charge. I don't know what I'm going to teach. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know if I can do this, but like, are you this allowed? I don't know. And I just did it a couple times with some ugly PowerPoint photocopies that I had put together in a little dinky Office Depot folder. And the immediate reaction I got from collegiate athletes was, why have I not learned this before? Which was exactly my response when I learned it. And so I felt like, okay, I'm on to something. And I felt like the world needed more of this information. I felt really lucky that someone had sort of taught it to me and pulled me aside. And I knew what an impact it could have, not only on people's careers in their sports, but on their life. And it just became my mission. I was just like, I'm going to teach this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how to make money at it, but it's going to happen. And that was 20 years ago.
What a gift. A gift for
Yeah.
you. But you applied it beyond. I think one of the things that I wrote down was you kept doubling down on mental skills. And I think at those kind of fracture points where you had to make a decision, I've made it to the pros. I am now cut. And then I made it and now I'm cut. What was that fracture point for you where you realized, no, I'm going to continue? And at this point, you were probably neck and neck physically. Do you feel
Right.
like those mental skills, when you doubled down, like what did that look like at that point in your career?
I would say there's pretty much, well, there's a couple, but one was um I had it dialed in high school, right? Because I had learned it at about, I think I just turned 16. So my last 2 years of high school, I was talented enough with the mental stuff that I had a great rest of my high school career. And then you go to college. So that's probably the first big step. And you've experienced this, you know, any really anybody that has played at the collegiate level, I don't really care what level of college, you go from being the best player on your team potentially to a lot of times the worst, or at least in the bottom half, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much coming at you, not just on the court, but, and everybody's good physically. And you have a whole new system to learn, and you don't have your like, you're not the coach's pet anymore, and you're away from home maybe for the first time. And so, I had two big injuries my freshman year. I got pneumonia, I had a stress fracture, and my coach was basically like, we need to redshirt her. Like, I was not ready. And I just had to keep going back to my mental skills. And it eventually it just clicked. And luckily it clicked in time to not get redshirted. And I went on to have a great freshman year. Like I helped us win the Big 12 championship. Like I came off the bench, we got to the Sweet 16. Like I helped with all that as a freshman. Going from almost redshirting to that was a huge jump, and it was all mental. It was all
Mm.
mental. So that was the first test, and that really set me on, you know, being the starting point guard, having a great career at Iowa State. I would say another point was my senior year. You know, after having a great career, you imagine in your mind that your senior year is going to be magical. You imagine that you are eventually going to win the national championship, or at least some championship, or you're going to like ride off into the sunset and just have a great year. My senior year was the worst year that I had had as a team. I still think I scored a bunch of points because I had to, but our team was not that great. We were in the Big 12, where at that point, if you weren't great, you were getting slammed every single night. I think we had the first losing record that my coach, I mean, we set a lot of records that year.
The wrong way.
Yeah, the wrong way. And I mean, I was a mess. But that taught me a lot, you know, because your brain really wants to quit, right? Not physically quit. I would have done that. But you really have to fight the urge to stop investing in winning. That's the bottom line. You know, and whether you're playing and you're losing, or whether you're not getting off the bench, like to keep investing when things aren't going well is a real big mental test. And so that was one. And then playing professionally, again, you know, you have the added pressure of it being your paycheck. You have real no guarantees of staying on a team, or getting picked up by a team, or getting cut if you lose, getting replaced by another player. I mean, it's really mental in that regard. Um, excuse me. And then you know, there was a couple times I was a practice player in the WNBA, just getting like nailed on screens every practice and just showing up and giving my best every day. That's mental. I knew I was going to get cut. The assistant coach had told me, and knowing that I still was going to be in training camp, and at that point, mentally deciding that as irritated as I was, that it wasn't about the results. It was actually about the kind of player that I wanted to be, the kind of person that I wanted to show up like. And so there was these definite points along the way. And here's the thing, Amanda, which you'll appreciate, is like when I was in the middle of those moments, I couldn't see that those would end up making me, I mean, in many ways a better human, but certainly a better mental performance coach. I mean, I remember struggling through the WNBA and thinking to myself, if my mental game doesn't get me to the WNBA, who's ever going to listen to me as a mental performance coach? I mean, that was really my thought.
Mm.
You know, that there was some level that I had to get to, instead of the journey of trying to get to that level. I mean, that's really what you are then able to teach. You're not able to teach results. Nobody can guarantee results. You can
If we
teach the
could.
mental process. Yeah, if you could, we'd be billionaires, right? Yeah, exactly.
Bottle that up.
Oh, right. So it's who you get to become going through that, which is really hard to see when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah. Which I'm skipping, I'm breaking all of our podcast rules. The question we ask every podcast guest at the end, we're just going to ask now because it would be really powerful to hear your answer. And it's the past self question, which we also use with our one-on-one clients as a mental skills technique to reflect. But if you could go back and take the Lindsey of today and place her at any point on your past timeline, and you could go back and give one of those past Lindseys a message, if you could caress her cheeks and get her to pay attention and say, look, I have this message for you, what would you say?
I love that question. I think I would say something along the lines of, this struggle is part of who you get to become. Like, we don't get to the levels of success that we all dream of and we want. That path is not a fun one. Like, it's not. It's rewarding, it's fulfilling, but the breaks in it and the potholes and all of the downswings are part of it. And they're not just a part of it to get over, they're the part of it. Like, they're the things that create who you get to become. I mean, I talk to my mindset coaching students and the entrepreneurs in my programs all the time of like, we're not trying to get to some level. I mean, we'd have goals, we have monetary goals, but it's about who you get to become. That's the most exciting part of all this. Because like you said, I mean, we can't guarantee that you're going to get to the division one level. You're not going to guarantee to play at the professional level. I mean, I did a lot of that stuff, but what's really cool about it, about getting to those levels, is who I got to become on the journey. Which sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's actually true.
Yeah, everything that we thought was cheesy. In the moment, you would hardly believe, like,
Yeah,
we're going to get through this. We're going to be on the other side. You get to help
yep,
hundreds of thousands of other teams and athletes
yep.
and now other mental performance coaches. I think that
And what I would also, yeah, oh yeah, well, to your point, the empathy piece, one of the things that one of the exercises that I have my new entrepreneurs go through is, you know, a lot of times we think our messes disqualify us. And a lot of times those are the things that qualify us. Like me getting cut from the WNBA at the time, I thought it meant I couldn't do this work. And now I look back and I'm like, that's the thing that makes me actually, one of the things that makes me really good at this is because of that empathy piece. I know what it's like to get cut. I know the mental component to thinking you're going to get cut and then knowing you're going to get cut and all the anger and victim and the blaming and all the thoughts that come up. I've been through that. I know exactly how it feels. So the empathy piece is big. I mean, none of us really want leaders or coaches or anybody that haven't been through stuff. That's pretty boring.
Well, I think that's the myth of mental performance, is that, you know, when I first started this journey, it was the attack of, and I actually had, like, Lindsey, this is still like scarring for me, but when I was a head high school coach and I started implementing this stuff with my players, you almost got these side looks from parents of like, why aren't they on the field practicing? What are they doing over in the grassy area with their notebooks? Shouldn't they be practicing? It was almost like this, like, you're just teaching them fluff. It's just motivational quotes. It's just fluffy. And it's like, when you start to understand that we've been through what your daughter's been through, and it's not just like, I'm not just here to give her a motivational pep talk. Like, it's mental skills, visualization, self-talk, belief shifting, like all of these things that we get to teach our athletes. If I could go back and know now, and I feel like I am a broken record. So if you're listening to this, like, you mentioned this on every podcast episode. If your daughter only knew what she has access to that we didn't have access to, she would like take her mental training so much more seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's the difference maker, right? I mean, at the higher levels you go up, as you know, it gets less physical. The differentiator, I should say, it gets more physical in the sense of the training, but it gets less physical as far as who's going to do the best, who's going to be on the pitch, who's going to be on the field. The difference between good and great at that level is entirely mental, almost always.
Yeah, which is one of the topics that we wanted to cover today. So if we segue to that, one of the things that we had talked about before we hit record was, you know, this idea that a mistake that parents, and lovingly, we love you parents, is this idea that we're waiting for this mental fortitude to just magically build itself. We're waiting for other coaches to teach it to our daughters, and it's just not the reality. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we're at the age where a lot of parents, and you and I are both moms, like, you want to set your kid up for success, right? And you believe, likely if you're listening to this, you believe like you and I do of like sports is, if not the best, I'm biased, I think it's the best, if not the best, one of the best ways for young people in particular to learn so many valuable skills. And so we invest in, if you're softball, it's probably, great bats and gloves and travel teams and like all of the things and pitching coaches and all the things, which are great to a certain degree. And the one thing that can screw all of it up is the mental game, because the mind is the thing that allows athletes to be at their best, period. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of um, parents are trying, but I do think that it's like when we're really talking about what we want out of sports, and sure, we can say we want scholarships and we can say we want these great results, but really, we want our daughters to be strong. We want our
Yeah.
daughters to like not take any, you know what,
Yeah.
And so like those are the things that come from sports, and they come more when you've developed the mental game. And I think you were also talking about like coaches, parents wanting coaches to do more of this. And I think, one of the reasons that I have a business is there's too much information out there.
Yeah.
I think my business started because people didn't know enough, because I started 20 years ago. Like people didn't know what mental performance training. And then about 10 years ago, I mean, some of it was the internet, but some of it was just like the collective awareness, and athletes started talking about it. I mean, society started talking about meditation and all these sorts of things. And then all of a sudden the floodgates opened. And now, and this is true for a lot of things because of the internet, but like there's so much information that parents, athletes, coaches get overwhelmed, paralyzed, and things get overcomplicated really fast. And it doesn't have to be that way. Mental
Yeah.
performance training, the best mental performance training is simple, actionable, and doable.
Can you Lindsay, can you please key into actionable? Because I think sometimes we just put a blank statement on it of positive self-talk, and it's just this
Mm-hmm.
blank statement. But if you don't break it down for the action of how to actually reframe thoughts, how to become aware of the thoughts, like that is truly like when I started doing research in this and teaching it, it's like, where's the act? Like, what are the action steps? Instead of just saying to your athlete, think positive, talk
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
nicely to yourself,
Yeah.
mantras, visualize success. But like,
Yep.
what are the actions aligned with that? You know?
Mm-hmm. I know exactly. So we have
Yeah.
something called the mental game plan. It's a six-part system. This is the system that took me 20 years to develop. We teach it to coaches that want to implement it with their athletes. So they don't want to start a business, they don't have clients, but they want to have this in their business, or sorry, in their on their team, because they know how important it is. And they know how much time it's taking them to try to react to mental game issues. So we have a six-part system. We also teach it to our coaches that are certified, that are wanting to have a business. So they have a system and a curriculum they can take their athletes through. I won't go into every step, but I would say the first two steps are really the education and awareness of how the brain works, how thoughts can be managed because of how they impact our results. There's a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, actually, it's a cognitive behavioral theory behind it, and really actionable tools that people can implement, including visualization. That
Yeah.
being said, we also have something within that called the athlete toolbox. Having done this for a long time, like I said, things need to be simple, actionable, and doable, right? And also things that work, right? That's kind of obvious, but
Yeah.
it still is worth noting. So what we teach is we teach a pre-practice routine. I know you said you do it with your athletes like on the field. It doesn't have to take long. And I think the younger athletes are, the simpler it can be. But we do have a 5-minute system. We call it the Braver. And it has everything that an athlete needs to get their mind right for practice. I mean, practice is huge, right? And we spend a lot of time getting athletes physically warmed up for practice, which can have a mental component to it as well. But actually having them with a mental warm up that
Yeah.
they do every single practice. The way that you get mental training in an actionable, simple way is you do it every day or you do it every practice. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
I always ask whoever I'm talking to, I go, did you brush your teeth this morning? Probably, right? Amanda, did you brush your teeth this morning?
Yeah.
Are you going to do it again tonight?
Yeah.
Is it hard to remember?
No.
So that's like, it's so much harder to do something every once in a while than it is to do it every day. That is just how the brain works. And so when we have a pre-practice mental warm-up, it makes it really easy for everybody. We also have a pre-game routine. So this can be just an important way for athletes to really understand the fight or flight response, understand how to manage their thoughts in a really simple way that is going to help them deal with the inevitable emotions, i.e. nerves, before competition so that they can play at their best. Again, these are like 5 to 10-minute things.
Yeah.
Then we have what we call the reset or mistake ritual. And, in softball, that's going to be great. It's going to be when someone makes an error. It's going to be somebody that strikes out. It's going to be in between pitches, right? Having something concrete. And from a parent perspective or a coach perspective, not only can they have one of their own, but watching a game and seeing an athlete, strike out or, whatever, watching that and wondering if they have a tool in that moment and then knowing that they do is like worth all of the investment, right?
Yeah.
That the
Pressure off
athlete
the parent.
actually has a tool in that moment is key. And then finally, this is something that a lot of people miss is post competition. You could also do it post practice as well, but we basically have them journal 3 different questions. It's really simple. And the goal of that is to teach athletes, and I would say especially young female athletes, how to critique their performance without criticizing themselves. This is a skill. You can talk all day long, as you mentioned, about positive self-talk, be great to yourself, be nice to yourself. What happens if they had a really bad game?
Yeah.
That's not going to come natural for them, right? And so they have to be taught and they have to have the repetition of saying, okay, this was a bad game. What went well? What can I do better? Right? Like having the ability to objectively look at their performance is like an amazing skill set far beyond the playing field. So that's what we call our athlete toolbox. And it's just simple and actionable and doable.
Yeah. I love that so much. And again, actionable of a parent. If you're a parent that's thinking, okay, so I have a choice of buying a bat or buying a mental skills program. And when you think about that perfect anecdote, you watch your daughter strike out and you can see her do, we call it the failure reset routine. It's
Yeah.
like, that she has something to go to. And guess what that means for you as a parent?
Yep. Yeah.
You can't see
Yeah.
me, but I'm zipping my lips,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Yeah.
get to relax in the stands,
Relax. Yep.
knowing that it's not on you as a parent anymore. You've
Yeah.
given her the tools. You've given her the gift of
Yep.
she now has those tools. Just
Right.
like you would send her to, what do you guys call it in basketball? Like a coach, like a
Mm-hmm.
private lesson or a hitting
Yeah.
lesson or a pitching lesson,
Yep.
You
Yeah.
don't think
I
twice about
mean,
that?
right. And I think that's again, when we get back to like, what do we really want out of sports? And in particular, female athletes, I mean, I have 4 daughters, so I know this well. Like the thing that I want them to get out of sports is I want them to learn to trust themselves. I want them to deal with failure. I want them to be able to manage their thoughts about their teammates and about their coach and take feedback and like all of the life skills. That's what excites me about them. I want them to push themselves. Like, that's all mental, right? And so those are the things that I think most parents are really interested in.
Absolutely. Well, where do we go from here? You talked a little bit about working with other coaches that are curious about this, and we had that conversation as moms. What do you feel like has been, and this is a selfish question, you've been in this, I look up to you. What do you feel like has been a driver or a driving force for you? How have you taken your mental skills as an athlete and transferred them to your life as an entrepreneur and a mom? Right? Like those don't live in containers on themselves. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a mom here and I'm an entrepreneur here. Like we have to integrate it into our lives. So what mental skills do you feel like you're still using, even though it's not on a basketball court?
Yeah. I mean, I think two things. I think thought management as an entrepreneur, as a mom, um, because it all starts with awareness. Like, I mean, so for example, excuse me, I have my like bucket, if you will. That's what my pre-K kids tell me. My bucket has been emptied lately. I had surgery on my foot. I've been like laid up, just, it's holidays. Like a lot of moms are like maxed out, right? And what they call self-care is like not at the level that needs to be, right? So I've been shorter with my kids. My thought awareness about that has to be first and foremost, because when I am aware of my thoughts, something like my kids are crazy, they're not helping, right? I can start spiraling really fast. And when I think that way, if I don't catch it, and then that's where the actionable things come out. Like for me, I go to my front porch, I take some deep breaths, I get some fresh air, I close the door, the physical space from my kids that are like potentially screaming or what have you, really helps me reset. So it's kind of like the mistake ritual, right? And
Yeah.
then I come back, but it starts with the awareness of when I need it, which is like a moving target, right? Because no one's like patting me on the shoulder. Well, actually, my kids do now. They go, Mommy, go take a deep breath,
Yeah.
which again goes to like the team. Like that's where a coach can help or a teammate, recognizing it in other people. But all of that starts with awareness. So I think thought management from a parenting standpoint is so, so crucial. From an entrepreneurial standpoint, it is everything. Because if you're not able to manage your mind, let's say you have a bad launch or you hear no or whatever, your brain immediately goes what I call the negative train and it thinks, this is never going to work. No one makes money as a mental performance coach working from home with 4 kids. That doesn't exist. And that thought feels really real to me. And I have to be aware that it's a thought and not fact.
Right.
And the more that you're able to do that, the more you catch yourself going down really bad roads that waste time, that are a huge energy suck, and they start becoming self-fulfilling prophecies. They start building on themselves. That negative train, if we can mix metaphors, it becomes a snowball, right? That really can suck you under. And you basically start making it true. You stop investing in your business, you stop thinking creatively about ways to solve it. And I see this with my students, especially ones that are first starting. They hear no a couple times on sales calls, or they get rejected for doing a presentation to their local swim club or whatever. And they can really easily think, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
I can't do this. No one is ever going to pay me. And this is where community helps. In our communities, they then not only can they get coached, but they look around, they're like, wait, but Julie's doing it and Brian's doing it, and they're not better or worse than me. So then that helps build that belief in themselves. Thought management and belief that it's going to work out is work. It like is the work. Like you can think the work is like your email list or a sales process, and like that stuff is important and you should absolutely learn those skills, but the skills don't actually matter if you're not able to manage your thoughts, because there is no like upward hockey stick type growth. There is ups and then there's a way low down. And if you don't manage your thoughts in the down, and that's true for having a bad game or getting rejected on a job interview, like this is life, right? But it's very pronounced with entrepreneurship, and it's very pronounced because most of us, at least a lot of us, especially in the coaching industry, are doing it alone. And so when they get down, there's no one there saying, you got this. Come on, just let's figure out, let's think of it differently. Let's find a new solution, unless you're in community, which is why I have a community, because I did it alone for years and years and years and it sucked.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard.
And how many percent of us are former athletes who are used to that community? I mean, I'm facing that right now, getting back to the gym. It's like, am I allowed to work out by myself? I need a squat rack partner.
Yeah. I literally just did a podcast on this because I said, So many people come into our certification and they're there to learn how to be a mental performance coach, and they realize that they needed a team. They're like in their life, doing life, and the last team they had was the sports team that they played on,
Yeah.
which was probably a while ago. And they didn't even realize that they missed it until they have it again. And they're like, things are easier. They're way more fun, and they're really easier. I mean, you think about athletes in college or whatever, and it's like, does anybody miss 5:30 a.m. workouts? No. Why? Is it because they love getting up at 5:30? No. It's because everybody else is doing it. It just makes things so much easier.
The hard
So
things.
yeah, I love team. That's why I've created my communities,
I
both for
love that.
myself.
Well, we can link all of your resources below. You've got your athlete kind of 6-step for coaches. You've got your certification, which is amazing because, again, thinking back to the AB of 6 years ago, of like,
Yeah.
I hired 2 grad students to help me research this. And then it's this big can of worms where you realize, where were these skills when I was playing?
Yeah.
You'll find this funny. So I was actually using visualization as a pitcher, but it wasn't like a honed skill. It was just kind of like an intuitive
Yeah.
thing for me, where I
hmm
realized that if I was executing a certain pitch, I was, I teach pet lep. It's like I was literally following that exact model for visualization. But how much
hmm
powerful would that have been, not
hmm
only as a player, but as a coach, if I would have known how to reteach
hmm
it? Right. And that's a
Yeah.
joke too of, you could go take pitching lessons from an amazing D1 pitcher, but sometimes the greatest
Yeah.
athletes are
Yeah.
always the greatest teachers.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's me.
they don't know how they got there.
Yeah.
I didn't know you'd only been doing it for 6 years. That's impressive. You built a business. That's fast. Yeah, I mean, so when I started this business, I was like, everybody needs mental performance coaching. Every athlete needs it, right? Or deserves to have access to it. And I did it for a while and I was like, well, I'm only one person. And then I was like, I think there needs to be other people, but I wasn't quite sure if the world was ready. And this was like 15 years ago, right? And I was like, I don't know if enough people are willing to pay for it because it's still like I'm still trying to convince people, right? And then the tide started changing and I was like, okay. And then it like I said, the floodgates open and I was like, the world needs more mental performance coaches, like period. And I know people that are listening to this are seeing it in their communities, right? They're seeing their kid or they're seeing their team and like the need is everywhere in every kind of niche. There's not too many of us. I can tell you that. It's challenging with the algorithm because once you get into mental performance coaching, you think that they're everywhere. And I will say, like, go to the high school next to you and like a mile from your house. Is there gonna be a mental performance coach? No. And there's a million of those situations in the country and in the world, right? There's just not enough of us. But so I started my certification. And then, like I said, there was just so much information out there. What am I going to teach them? Do I need to get certified or get my degree? What am I going to charge? And they get really overwhelmed with all that. And I would say, I told you this earlier, there's really 2 skills that you need to be successful in our field. One is you have to be really good at coaching. There is no way around it. Now, you can learn that skill. I can teach you. I don't know if you teach people at all, but like you can learn the skill of coaching. I mean, I think there's an art to it as well, which comes with practice, lots of practice, but you can get good at that. And really what that means is you have to get results. I don't mean everybody has to get a college scholarship. Those aren't the results I mean, but people have to get results. But the second skill is you have to learn, and this is again a totally learnable skill, is you have to learn how to talk about those results, talk about the value of those results. If you're just starting at the level that we are at, if you're above that, those are the 2 skills that you always have to be good at. And again, the good news is they're all learnable.
Well, and how many grad students that have their masters? I think
hmm
academia is also doing a massive disservice where maybe you take one,
Yeah,
entrepreneurship 101 class and one human
right.
class. It's here you go. Here's your master's in sports psychology. I think
Yeah,
what you're doing is incredible. And I think that community piece too, where it is lonely. Entrepreneurship is lonely. Head coaching is lonely. Like find your
yep.
people, find your tribe.
Find your
And
people. Absolutely. It makes a big
whatever you want to
difference.
learn, you can learn
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we put too much on coaches, like that's for sure.
You
And
forgot recruit
so,
at the
yeah,
college
and
level.
recruit at the college
It's
level.
staff
Yeah, totally.
recruiting
Yeah.
and
And
ops.
so and then you're the emotional, like support system for your assistant coaches or your head coach if you're assistant, and whoever else is involved, and the players, and then the parents if they're involved. So it's a lot, and it's not the mental performance coach is the panacea or it makes everything better, but it kind of does, because once you start empowering your athletes with some tools, then like you said, you get to sit there and be like, okay, they are prepared for this moment. They know what to do when they strike out or when they have an error. We have a plan for that that doesn't involve me doing something that may or may not work in that moment. Right. And so it really frees up coaches, because so many, I mean, we're in the era where, like, at least the coaches that come to me, I don't know what your experience is, but like, they know that the mental game is important. Like,
Right.
there's not a lot of like the old school that were like, suck it up. I don't see that so
Yeah,
much
I think we're past
anymore.
that, hopefully.
Yeah. So now they're like, this is really important. Let me fix it. And it's almost, I would almost say it's like, it ends up being a little bit of like a codependent situation where they're like, I'm going to fix it for every person, every day, whatever they need. And it's like, well, that's a recipe for not only burnout, but like the kids aren't necessarily getting the skills for themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
there's the osmosis part that they're getting, they're obviously learning from great coaches, but like, how can you teach them the tools so that they have a toolbox that they rely on? Because those are the life skills that they can take with them, no matter what they do in their sport.
Mic drop. I already used my last question, I guess. So anything else that you want to add or leave with, kind of, my world is a lot of softball, but we have some other sports. What's kind of like your, man, if you knew Lindsey Wilson, like, this is my message. This is what I want you to walk away with.
Well, I think I pretty much already said it. I mean, I see the world through the lens of sports. I'm obsessed with sports. I think sports are the greatest training ground for people, especially young women, to like learn to be their best and go for what they want in their life. Like, that's what fires me up. And but with that, I also think, I mean, you hear about a lot of girls quitting sports, and even without that, it is not guaranteed that people are going to get these great life skills from sports. It's not. Like, I think they'll probably learn something, but if we can add on 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day and start teaching more of like why we are all here, like, wow, that's why I'm here, because people fall through the cracks. I saw players, and the higher up you go, the more mental it becomes. And if people don't have the skills to manage that, they're not going to be successful. And it's not their fault. Right. And so if we can give the people, young athletes in particular, these skills, like, sky's the limit. They can take these and they can do whatever they want in their life. And I just think that's what excites me, because I know that sports has that capability, and I know coaches want that. I know parents want that. And I think if we add in just a little bit more with the mental side, we're just so much more likely to be getting out of sports what we're all here for, which is a transformational life experience.
Amen. That was a
Yeah.
great way to end this conversation. What is the best place if parents want to follow you? I know you're active on Instagram. What's the best place to send them? Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn?
Yeah. Instagram at Lindsey Positive Perform. I also have my own podcast. It's called the Mindset Coach Academy. So people that are interested in mental performance coaching, either as a business or they're just interested in mental performance training. So people that like to nerd out on mental performance training, come on over to Instagram. I talk about stuff in this area all the time. So that's a great way to connect.
I love it. And we'll link all those below. Lindsey, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Amanda. I can't believe we haven't connected yet. So this is great.